So some of the most common forms of your communication are going to be your email, your Facebook comments. That's also a place where you get lots of interesting communication, and also through things like reviews and recommendations of your business. That throat's starting to get really, really tired now. So you'll hear them in my voice. The more ideas expressed in email, the less chance that they'll be understood the way you really wanted them to be. So that's the danger of email, is that we can tend to get really wordy, and we can tend to get really talkative and over-explain things and try to justify our position and get quite defensive when someone sent us something. But the idea is that the more topics and more things we try to express in an email, the less chance that any of them are going to be understood. So they'll read one point and one sort of idea and take that in. And then the rest of it's like, oh my God, this is just getting overwhelming. There's like 7 points of different information here. How am I meant to remember all this? So what happens is that they walk away with very little understanding of anything that went on there. They've just kind of skimmed, because that's the way people read emails these days. We're not reading it like a novel. We're not reading it like the Bible or the Quran. What we're doing is we're picking it up and saying, you know what, I'm just going to skim over this just to get the information I need and go. And what happens when it's too wordy, we don't pick up that information at all. In something like a Facebook message or a Facebook post or a Facebook comment, the more complex your idea is that you want to communicate, the greater the chance it's going to be misread. So when you're on social media, that is not a place to be discussing great length. And this is why Facebook has in the past been such a bad place for things about religion and tolerance and politics and different views about the way the world is and the way we should raise kids and all that sort of thing, right down to, the behavior of Grace Tame at Australia Day yesterday. All that becomes as full of very complex reasons. And what we try to do as humans, we try to take complex ideas and break them down to simple solutions or simple responses or simple reasons. So we say, oh, it's Grace Tame, she was discussing because she needs to learn manners. So a very complex issue about sexual assault and a very complex issue about the way that the Prime Minister has interacted about sexual assault and all that has been reduced to someone now having bad manners, when really what it's all about is much more complex details between a Prime Minister who has certain views of life and a woman who has another view of life, kind of clashing there. And that's reducing it down to jingoism, which is like oh, she should do this, or he should do that, or he just needs to change. Those kind of simple solutions are what we look for on Facebook. That's why it's so easy to have an argument on Facebook, because no one's there to discuss or be convinced about everything. We come to Facebook with our own way of thinking. We come to Instagram with our own way of operating in the world. We're not there to be educated on something new. So when you try to do that, when you try to explain something very complex or complicated to someone, you lose them very quick, because they're not there for that. They're there for a quick fix. Easy problems, easy solutions. Entertain me, make me laugh, give me a bit of outrage, but nothing that's going to be so explaining that, there's complex reasons behind the way people do what they do and the way they write. So if you're trying to write a post for Facebook and you're trying to do this in such a way that you're trying to explain quite a lot of stuff over a long, long post, you've lost them usually after the second sentence. The rest of it's just bleh. I know that sometimes they say to you when you're trying to sell things like online courses or digital products that you need to explain all the solutions and the problems. What you need to do is get their attention. That's all Facebook's good for, getting attention, so they'll go and read the information elsewhere if they're interested in it. But they're not going to read it online. They're not going to read it on Facebook. They're going to take that offline to another place, to a website, to a landing page, and learn it that way. Because if you try to overcomplicate it, you try to write something too long on Facebook, we've got no real attention span on Facebook. Attention span is about 3 seconds. So we don't get it in 3 seconds, we're not going to get it at all. And then when it comes then beyond that, and we go into something like reviews and recommendations, which can be quite pointed, we've got to understand that reviews really exist in the extremes of I had a good experience or the extremes of I had a bad experience. The in-between is kind of like no one really goes there. That's why most reviews are either 1 or 5 stars. They're either completely happy or completely disgusted. So this is where you need to then look at the reality that a review or recommendation is usually very short, and focuses on the one thing that either it really impressed someone or the one thing that really annoyed them. Now, there might be, if they're really they've got a lot of time in their hands, and we probably look at baby boomers like that. They're generally retired and they've got a bit more time in their hands to be doing these things. I've seen my dad do it. You might get a long, long list of gripes that are put on there, but they never really get into the long, long list of things that went right. They just look at all the gripes. So understand that there's a context of these things, that when you're writing them, it's best expressed when you just have one thing that really annoyed or impressed you, and then feed that back to people. It's more useful for other people. But as someone who's being reviewed or someone who's having a recommendation or not recommendation written about you, and it's a little bit different. It's then you understanding what the nature of that communication is. It's not a place to make you feel good. It's a place for consumers and customers to feed back to you their experiences. And those experiences usually are bad. Sometimes they're good if they're friends. They'll write nice things about you. So it's definitely the digital communication side of that. It's a little bit easier to sort of take in. So what we've done over the history of the internet to make online communication a little easier and to express emotions, we've invented things like emoticons, what I call leet speak. I'll explain what that is in a second, and emojis. Emojis are really obvious. We're all very used to those. So when in the early internet, emoticons were a way of expressing something you couldn't necessarily express verbally. We didn't have voice calls. We had phone calls naturally, but we're chatting to people on online bulletin boards. We weren't even on the World Wide Web yet. There was no Facebook or anything like that. There wasn't even at that time when I started using the internet, there wasn't even images. It was all just text. And so what we would do is we take certain punctuation marks and combine them with letters or combine with other punctuation marks to form emotions. And you can see that the smile, I still use that because it shows my age. Things like the big smile, I'll use the shout or the yawn. What else do I use? Oh yeah, sticking out the tongue, I'll do that one quite a lot. I'll also look at, not the coffee cup, never done that one before, but I can see what it is. Probably the cry, I've done that one. There's several in there I still do to this very, very day, that I express emotion or lightness to my words, especially the smile happy one. That one I'll do quite a lot. That then moved into what we call leet speak. And it's about the same time. Leet speak is short for elite speak. So the elite internet people who, we were the leading edge of, sophistication and new technology because we knew how to use IRC chats and bulletin boards to communicate with people we'd never met before or likely never will meet. And so it was called elite speak or leet speak. And that was using acronyms like TTFN, which is like ta-ta for now, TTYA, talk to you later, long time no type, away from keyboard, back at keyboard, all those kind of things are helping us to go to shorten it down and add a little bit of some softness to words, I guess, because words laughing out loud a lot to type. So you get LOL. But then at the same time, telling someone you'll be right back, BRB was like a light, sort of casual and kind of nice way of saying you'll be back. You won't just, I'll be back later can sound a bit, a bit direct and a bit blunt. But having BRB, it lightened a little bit. So made it feel like it was a bit more friendly. Now, as we moved on out of leet speak and emoticons, we developed things called emojis. And now emojis, which came out of Japan originally, emojis are a different way of communicating expression in a much more graphical way, kind of like the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt, where things that what you would write is the letters or the words that were used were actually used in a way that what you drew represented what you were talking about. So a house was a house, a bird was a bird, etc., etc. So in emojis, we've then got a whole set of emotions that we can share with people that are very, very clear and universal across lots and almost all different cultures. So we've got, the devil being, I'm being cheeky, the sunglasses on the smiley, meaning I'm being cool, the love hearts in the eyes, meaning that I'm in love with what you just said or something like that. It's much more closely. And then you've got gestures using fingers and hands. And then you've got things that like aliens, I'm not sure what they are for, but they all used in a way that's helping us to communicate more clearly. So it's not just text anymore. We can break it up with a little bit of jovialness, a little bit of joy, a little bit of nice and soft, and allows us to get that message across, which sometimes might seem quite blunt and quite sharp, to soften those edges down a little bit so we can help people to feel a bit more comfortable with the way we're talking. So with a smiley after something we've said, which might actually, if read without a smiley, seem very, very blunt and quite aggressive, with a smiley, it puts context around that sentence to make it feel a lot better. I like emojis. I don't like emojis when they're overused. An emoji at the end of a sentence to indicate like what I just read should be taken with a grain of salt, or what I just read is like, wow, that's really important, or what I just read actually makes me angry because of the emoji that was used, then I've actually receiving the information better and more precisely and more accurately than what I would be if that, for instance, that person hadn't have actually shared that emoji in there. Because when they don't share an emoji, you're kind of still guessing stuff. You're kind of still trying to work out what it is you're doing. You're trying to still work out how I'm supposed to be receiving this message. So then we get a bit stuck in, well, maybe this is not really quite the message that was meant to be put across. And then we get conflict coming about from it. Things like this, you suck, LOL. You suck, LOL feels a lot more friendly than you suck. You're hopeless with a laughy thing is a lot more friendly than just saying you're hopeless, which might mean actually I am hopeless. The other one might mean, oh goodness, this situation in which you just told me about, yeah, you're kind of hopeless in that laugh. And then tomorrow will be okay. Which without an emoji you might see, tomorrow will be okay. Oh, good. I'm good to know that tomorrow will be okay. But in this, it could be the getting a report through to your boss, and they include an angry emoji saying, basically tomorrow will be okay, but I'm not happy about it. And then adding an emoticon such as, yeah, nah, mate, with a wink on it is like, yeah, no, I'm not going to take that on. But, I understand where the cheekiness is coming from with asking me for this particular thing. So just adding that and softening things, I think it's actually a useful way of talking. English literature people will hate me for saying this, but I think emojis have really helped us to solve that problem of how to communicate with people in probably a more casual way. Without having to get the words so right all the time. For those who are from a non-English speaking background or have English as a second language, this can really help break down the barriers and help someone to communicate the way they really wanted to communicate. So now I'll move on to the obligations of the sender and the receiver. That sounds very formal, doesn't it? The idea that you have an obligation as a sender or a receiver of an email. This is going to be fun to go and work out. Where are you going with this one, Dante? A really good definition I saw of communication and its effectiveness is this one. Effective communication is all about conveying your messages to other people clearly and unambiguously. That's a big word. It's basically getting your information across to people so that it's very hard to misunderstand it. It's very clear what the answer, what you're trying to put across and what the actions are. And there's no sort of guesswork you have to make in there. Now, this is something which I guess our governments have been very, very bad at when it comes to COVID-19. They've been particularly confusing. There's a lot of ambiguous information in there, which is like, okay, you cannot come across the border if you've got COVID. Okay, great. I get that. But then they say, but there's exceptions to these people. You're like, wait, what? You just said you can't come across, and now you're saying that there's some exceptions. So if it's safe for those exceptions to come across, why isn't it safe for me to come across? And people get up in arms over things, and you can see what they do. It's not clear and it's ambiguous. So let's look at that. Clear answers and communication often involve the words yes and no. As a response, saying to someone yes or no. So for instance, I had friends who asked me out to a big Australia Day party yesterday. I responded, no, I won't be coming. I wasn't having to create a story around that. I didn't have to further explain it. I just very simply said no. Now, they're used to me saying that. And some people might think that's like, oh, that's rude. I won't invite you again. That's fine. I'm not a party guy. But what it was just that I didn't want to have to feel like I was justifying it. And in your case, when you stop justifying your yes and your no, and this is in personal life as well as your professional life and your business, then you'll find that it's a world opens up to you, that when your yes is yes and your no is no, your no is not like a no because, the kids are mucking up and I'm feeling a bit under the weather right now and I've got to do my hair and my husband's really wants me to be home. Or when you start explaining all that, no one actually asked for that information. All they asked for was your yes or your no. And if you give them more information than that, it muddies things up. It makes things not clear. So they're like, oh, so you're saying you wanted to come and your husband won't let you. We need to have a talk, sister. That sort of thing. It just takes your no and turns it into a drama. So the more information you add in, the more drama you're going to create. Saying to someone that you're going to be there tomorrow at 3:45 is clear. I'll be there tomorrow at 3:45. You might even go, I'll be there tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. at the post office. just so it's very, very clear where you'll be, that's tomorrow, and what time it's going to be as well. So that kind of communication where it's, I'll be there tomorrow at 3:45, tells someone that they can expect you to be there at 3:45 p.m. tomorrow. That's clear communication. Clear communication is also saying, I'll just have a cough again, sorry. I'll be the guy in the yellow shirt with the red stripe. That's clear. They know to now look at someone with a yellow shirt with a red stripe on it. That's going to be very uncommon because most people wear black, blue, and white. So a red shirt, a yellow shirt with a red stripe will be easy to spot. Very clear, very easy to remember. Or saying something like the house with number 39 on the letterbox. That's really simple. You just look at letterboxes, there's 39, that's where we're going. Having someone trying to send you an email and have a submission in by 5 p.m. today by saying, excuse me, this is required by 5 p.m. today. After that time, no further submissions will be accepted. That is abundantly clear that it's required by 5 p.m. today. And after that time, that no more will be accepted. That's been laying down the law. Very, very clear. Being ambiguous. So you want to be unambiguous, but being ambiguous means instead of yes or no, you say maybe. Instead of saying I'm going to be there at 3:45, you're saying I'll be there tomorrow between 3 and 4 p.m. Oh, that's so annoying. I'm looking for, that, you know, that yellowish shirt with a bit of a design on it. Well, that doesn't make it clear. It makes it ambiguous because it could be 30 people with yellowish shirts with designs on them. Being there tomorrow between 3 and 4, it's a whole hour's difference. That's not fair to someone who's waiting for your time. Being ambiguous is saying, oh, it's the house at the end of the street. I tell you, most streets don't have one house at the end of them. They usually have a cul-de-sac where there's like multiple different houses. There could be a house on each side. It could be a house in a cul-de-sac in a circle. Saying it's the house at the end of the street means it could be any of the houses at the end of the street. That's what's ambiguous. That's what makes it very ambiguous. You want to make it unambiguous and clear. Saying that it's required by 5 p.m. next Friday, after that, a valid reason will be required. It's basically contradicting yourself. You're saying it's required by 5 p.m. next Friday, but you give everyone an out. You're saying, oh, but you know, if you don't get it in by then, a valid reason will be required. But you're not actually telling anyone what the valid reason is. You're just saying there is a valid reason that's out there, but we don't know what it is. That's ambiguous. It means people can fill it in with their own meanings. Because it's not clear, people add lots of other meaning into it and they go, oh, it must be okay. Or if I'm sick, then that's okay. Or if my mum tells me I'm grounded, then that must be okay as well. Or it just means if I'm tired and don't feel like doing it, then that's okay as well. That's a valid reason. People fill in their valid reasons for you if you don't make it clear what those reasons are. But then on the other side, it's also about receiving information from others that they're sending to you with as little distortion as possible. I'll read that again. It's all about you receiving information that others are sending to you with as little distortion as possible. What do we mean by distortion? That means without adding meaning to something. So for instance, the receiver gets an email that says, your loan application has been declined, or your membership application has been accepted, or roadworks will occur in your street from 6 a.m. Very, very clear. Your loan application has been knocked back. Your membership application has been successful. Roadworks are going to start in your street from 6 a.m. There's no meaning on that. It's just the facts. Loan declined, membership accepted, roadworks 6 a.m. There's no real need to put meaning around that. But we as human beings, quite often, we get these digital communications through our Facebook messages, through our email, all that, and we start to add in sprinkles of meaning. We sprinkle on our little context and meaning about it. A little bit of fairy dust over here and a little bit of rainbow over there. And suddenly your loan application has been declined turns into, because the assessor didn't like me and I'm a loser, I'm going to have to leave them a terrible review. Your membership application goes from being accepted to, because Jason put in a good word for me, I suppose I'm going to have to owe him big time now. Roadworks will occur in your street from 6 a.m. because this always happens in our street. The mayor hates us and wants to cause us misery. It's like none of that stuff was in that email or in that message. The email message or the social media message was all what was in the right writing. What we do as humans, we tend to add meaning to it because we receive it and we assume that because it's a simple message, there must be lots more behind that. There must be motivations and there must be all these big magical reasons in the sky about why we are receiving this communication. So when we take that meaning out, it makes life so much more simple. It makes our reception of information So much more simple. And as a business owner, it takes away so much stress. The stress of constantly having to feel like we're fighting with people in comments, we're defending ourselves from reviews, that we're constantly trying to, deal with suppliers who are sending us information that isn't right. There is a way and there is a way not to reply to these things. And the first thing you've got to learn is to take the meaning out. What the things that you're assuming someone's meaning are 80% of the time not there. It's just you filling in a gap because you don't have more information. And the information you're putting in, remember where we looked at before with the k.u.b.a, we're looking at that you, without having all that body language that you can read and all that context that you can read around a message, you then start adding in your state of mind. So if you're in a bad mood, all these things will be added on. If you're in a good mood, you might be a little bit too over optimistic. You're adding meaning onto it. Read things at face value. See things as they are, the way they're written. If the words are clear, then you can walk away with going, yes, my loan application has been declined. Move on next, rather than dwelling over it. And this is what so many of us do. Now, this is a view at the receiver. We've already had the responsibility for the sender, which is to be very, very clear and unambiguous. But as a receiver of communications, you will save yourself so much time and effort and so much stress if you stop adding meaning into everything and just accept that the words are the words. That's all they are, particularly when it's from things like banks and insurance companies and all that. They do not have the time to be infusing every word with meaning that you think they are. They're just stating the facts. So when you receive emails like that, when you receive a bit of bad feedback about your business or some service that someone didn't get so great from you, understand that the words on the page are exactly what the person was saying. There may be more emotions behind it, but you don't know that until you talk to them. So how do we then send messages to other people that are better received? What are some of the techniques we can use? I like the you did, I feel. This is a bit of a dichotomy. That's a terrible word to use, so I'll just say it's a bit of an or. You did or I feel. So the difference is between saying, David, you left the lights on again last night. Are you deliberately trying to run up a massive bill this month? Notice how there's a lot of meaning being added to that, a lot of extra information that wasn't really part of it, when the fact is that David left the lights on last night. So, hi, David, I feel like I might not have been clear about how important it is to turn the lights off each night. Which one do you think is the better one that's going to be received by someone? As a sender, having that one there saying, instead of accusing someone and then adding extra meaning, saying you're deliberately trying to run up a massive bill, you're approaching them and saying, David, I feel like I might not have been clear enough about how important it is to turn the lights off each night. And then you can explain that our power bills are rather high because we have to have aircon all day. So every little bit that we can do can help make that a little bit easier on us as a business, and also gives us more to be able to invest back into the business and back into you as well. So I'll just express again, it's absolutely vital that you turn the lights off at night. Much nicer than just going in for the swing, going in the wrecking ball of accusation and meanings and stress and horror. It makes it so much easier for people to communicate with each other if we stop trying to attack each other in that. Another one is problem solution. When you come into a conversation or some sort of communication just with a problem and no solution. So this one's between a business owner and their supplier. This week, only half of my order was delivered. This is the 5th time this has occurred. As opposed to, given this is the 5th time that incomplete order has been delivered, I'd like to organise a time to work together to see how we can all resolve this. One is just cutting straight into the accusation. The other one's saying, look, here's the facts. Let's find a solution for it, which is ideally going to have a much better relationship between you and the supplier than what it would be if you just go in yelling at them. And this is why sometimes when you go in very aggressively at people, they just stop communicating with you. They stop talking to you simply because it's so painful and so annoying and so horrible to be able to talk to you that they just go, I'm just going to not talk to you at all, because it's just easier not to. It's easier to avoid you. And another one, the one idea at a time principle. So it can start off with, there are 12 different things that are occurring right now, all urgent and all laid out below for your immediate attention. So if I got that in an email, I'd be like, oh, here we go. I can read 12 different things. Holy crap, it's going to be hard. But if I read it this way, since I've got a bit of a wish list, let's perhaps work on one thing at a time so it doesn't get confusing. The most urgent issue really is the incident between Carl and Jackson. So you're saying, look, there is a lineup there. Let's just put that aside for now and let's concentrate on the most important thing right now. That whole idea that your communication, your message, your comment, your email, any of that, text message if it is, narrows it down to one thing at a time. So you're not overwhelming someone else with too much stuff they have to consider. If there's 12 different things, take the number out because they'll just focus on the number. You say, look, there's a bit of a wish list, but let's just work on one thing at a time so we can get it all right and not be confused. And the most urgent issue is this particular one. So that way you've narrowed it down to solving one problem at a time. Even though you need all problems solved, they're all urgent. You get one thing done, then you move on to the next once you've got that first thing done. Otherwise, you just overwhelm people and they'll just back off from you and they won't want to solve it at all. The facts and feelings separation. Separating the facts from the feelings is one of the great skills of life that you're going to love when you get a hold of it. I'm thoroughly disappointed with the way you handled this situation. I feel like all my time and training for you has been wasted and you're just ignoring the rules. As opposed to, there have been 2 incidents this week surrounding your quality of work that we need to work together to address. One of them is just going in and just slamming someone so that immediately before they even met you in person, they're already on the back foot. The other way is saying, look, I'm making you aware that I'm aware of this and I've seen these incidents and I know they're there, but I want to solve this with you. I don't want to accuse you of anything. I just want to resolve this because I'm a business owner and I'm just trying to make this thing work right. So how do we learn better to receive online messages? I use the reverse k.u.b.a. The reverse k.u.b.a is asking yourself, what do I need to know that's in this message? Read it, see what it is. What's the information that's vital for you to know, the facts? Secondly, the you, what are they trying to make me understand? Is there something in there they're trying to help you to understand? Is it understanding that not only is it important to turn off the lights, but that electricity is expensive? You see the subtext in there they're trying to help you understand. Next up, the B, are you asked to believe something? So the belief could be that electricity is expensive. The belief could be that the KFC will be back on the road in about a week's time. Ask yourself if you're trying to believe something, and then ask if you've actually been given an action to take here. If it is, can you please respond to this email and let me know how you feel? Or if it's, can you please buy a burger instead of trying to buy chicken pieces this week? Is there an action you've been asked to take? So it's just taking the k.u.b.a principle and flipping it on its head and reversing it as you as the receiver. So some takeaways. Digital communication is more difficult than in person, infinitely more so. Being clear and unambiguous is absolutely vital to being able to communicate clearly and then also being able to receive communication back clearly. Choose the appropriate way to communicate. Critical stuff, do it in person or at least on a video call. If it's not so critical, then you can use emails and texts and Facebook Messenger and all that sort of thing and WhatsApp. Both the sender and the receiver have responsibilities in this. So you as a sender of the email have a responsibility to be as clear and as unambiguous as possible. And as a receiver of it, what you've got to do is read the words as they are, not by trying to add lots of extra meaning from your own experience or from your own insecurities on there. That can be hard to do because we're not all perfectly evolved. And sometimes even I fall back on bad habits too. But in 99% of the time, I just read the words that are there and go, okay, what do I need to do? I need to work out what I need to know, what I need to understand about that, whether I'm asked to believe something and what the action is I need to take away from this. When you put it down to that, it makes it easier.